Evening. Just wanted to take a few minutes to give you all an update on what we're working on this week, and more importantly, give you a chance to give us some feedback and direction on things that are important to you all. So again, one of the reasons we do these is because we want to make sure that if we're representing you, then we're having an opportunity to engage, for y'all to post questions and share ideas, share frustrations, whatever it is that you may have, so we can make sure that we're doing our best job representing you. So I want to encourage you. You can go down right below where I am now in the writing comment section. You can type in a question, comment, whatever it is that you'd like to share with us, and we'll try and go through those and go through the questions and answers for issues that y'all may have. So this week, a few things we worked on. We worked on a controlled substance bill, just basically has to do with team doctors for sports teams, and EMS officials, allows them to administer drugs and carry drugs across state lines. In some cases, whenever they're traveling with teams or an EMS, a paramedic is traveling across state lines. We did a federal, an FDA bill that has to do with largely streamlining the drug approval process and helping to bring drug costs down. So it's a step in the right direction. I want to be clear that we think that we need to be even more aggressive on drug prices and efforts to help to bring down drug prices. This is a step in the right direction, and that it helps to streamline some of the drug approval processes and making generics available, which generics are generally less expensive than the name brand drugs. We've done 2 bills this week on anti-human trafficking. We did a bill that makes Department of Labor officials go through different training to recognize human trafficking situations where they can intervene and prevent those from happening, report to law enforcement. Number 2, we did a bill that makes grant funding available for anti-human trafficking efforts, which I was surprised to learn a number of years ago that Louisiana was one of the states that had the biggest human trafficking problem. So we have passed, I think it's a total, if I remember right, 16 different bills on human trafficking, helping to provide resources, to provide education awareness, and really important issue that we need to continue working on, continue making progress. And then right now, we were doing debate last night till probably about 11 p.m. We're going to be doing debate for a while tonight as well on the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the bill that authorizes all of our Department of Defense activities around the United States and around the world. Importantly, Department of Defense has experienced an extraordinary cut in budget over the last several years, particularly under the previous administration that just had different ideas on how to handle Department of Defense. General Mattis, who is the new Defense Secretary, said that he was, I think the word he used was shocked at the status, the readiness of our Department of Defense. We have had meetings with several senior Department of Defense or military officers, generals and admirals, describing to us the conditions in some cases of airplanes, the descriptions of different vehicles that they use, descriptions of aircraft, and just really unacceptable the lack of preparedness and the cannibalizing that's occurring on different vehicles, airplanes, vessels, to keep these things operating. And so this bill takes major steps in the other direction, meaning helping to restore funds, restore readiness, restore training dollars. In fact, we've got a few amendments on this bill that were included. We filed 3 different amendments and working on those. 2 of those have been accepted and in the bill now. One of them, we ran into some jurisdictional problems in different committees and unable to get that one passed, but we're continuing to work on an alternative solution. So the amendments we did, one of them had to do with allowing the Vietnam Service Medal to be awarded to some veterans that operated under Operation N-Sweep following in the end of the Vietnam War. We did an amendment on commissaries following a Government Accountability Office report that found some inefficiencies within the commissary system. So our goal is making sure that those cost savings go back to our military men and women and result in efficient operations of the commissaries, to make sure that we're not wasting money that otherwise could be used for benefits for our military men and women, or prices of commissaries and other things. So those amendments were included, but again, we're hoping to have that bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, finished by tomorrow sometime by early afternoon, hopefully. So big themes that we've been working on lately is just efforts to try to improve efficiency of government, continuing to work to incorporate new technologies into government. And just to give you an example, one of the things that we were very frustrated by, and I'm sure many of you were, almost a year ago after the flood that we had, is that we had to get a hard copy piece of paper signed by folks that were asking for our help engaging FEMA or SBA or other federal agencies when they had flood problems. And so we had to get a hard copy piece of paper with a signature on it to get your help and in order to help you. And you can imagine many of you flood victims said, look, I don't have a home, I don't have a car, I don't have anything at this point. And so y'all were frustrated, we were very frustrated, so we have introduced some bipartisan legislation that actually is going to allow all of this to be done on your phone, just like you do most of your business right now. And so we worked with Congressman Joe Kennedy of Massachusetts on that one. So we're working to get that bill moving. Again, just using common sense and technology to help provide better services. A few other things we've done this week. We met with Secretary Kelly, who's Secretary of Homeland Security, a number of Homeland Security issues, maritime issues, meeting with him, expressing some concerns and giving him some ideas on approaches that we thought were best for the nation and for Louisiana. We had a hearing this week on offshore energy production, talking about energy production in the Gulf of Mexico, energy production potentially on the East Coast. Had very good discussions there. And I had a meeting this morning with the SBA, the Small Business Administration administrator. Talked to her about a couple things that we've certainly heard from a lot of you. One is how they have sort of a perverse interest rate structure where the better credit you have, the worse interest rate you get. It seems counterintuitive. And also about this whole duplication of benefits issue where some people that got SBA loans were not eligible for some of the community development block grant, the flood recovery dollars that we're able to appropriate. So lastly, we had a number of meetings this week, including probably for about an hour and a half today, probably about 2 hours yesterday on national flood insurance. The current national flood insurance program expires in September, the end of September this year. We're working on a new authorization, a new bill for that. We want to make sure that rates don't go up. We've already seen some ridiculous increases after talking to many of you, some of those who flooded, and we're obviously trying to push rates in the other direction to make sure that it's actuarially sound, to make sure that it's solvent, but at the same time just reasonable. And there are some things in the current flood insurance program that I think are not reasonable. I think they're unacceptable in regard to cost. So working on those things this week, and so I'm gonna go through and start going through some of the questions, and hopefully this will work out okay. I know sometimes we have the issue where we lose the questions. Okay, so here we go. April, summer negative or 2 negative. I'm not sure what that means. Nikki, I've recently encountered issues with housing seniors at affordable rate. This may not be a topic for tonight's town hall. It's an issue important for those of us getting or knowing seniors on a fixed income. Nikki, if you can give us a call. Hey, Peel. And Nikki, as you can give us a call, I'd love to see if we can help plug you in with different programs that are available for housing programs, and just learn a little bit more about some of the challenges that you've encountered in working with housing seniors. 225-442-1731. So Nikki, if you can call us, love to learn a little bit more about what you're seeing. See Craig McCulloch's on. Craig, hope you and Wanda are doing well. Let's see. Ellis Guidry, the last revision of the healthcare bill indicates 13% less from the government for healthcare. Who's going to pick up the 13% if no one? If no one with healthcare providers settle for 13% less, the poor haven't got the means to pay more. Ellis, thanks for the question. Bottom line is that we have seen extraordinary increases in healthcare costs. The cost of providing healthcare has far exceeded the I guess I'll just say regular inflation rate. Drug cost in particular, just really off the charts in regard to the price increases or the price spikes that we've seen. And I think that's ridiculous. I think that one of the things we need to be working on in healthcare, and one of the concerns I have about some of the bills that are out there right now, is that they're not doing enough to help bend that cost curve for healthcare, meaning that they're not doing enough to help bring healthcare costs down, everything from hospital care to drug costs, to doctor's visits, to medical tests. We've just seen these extraordinary costs, and we've got to do more to help bring down those costs as opposed to trying to hit these absurdly high numbers. We've got a number of ideas, including simply providing better transparency in cost. And I know I read an article this week, I think it was in The Advocate, that talked about how Blue Cross was doing that. Lee Zurich down in New Orleans, one of the reporters down there, did a big series. I think it was with the Times-Picayune as well. He's with VUE TV station Fox 8, but I think he did a joint thing with Times-Picayune down there, just comparing costs for the exact same service. How much is a certain knee surgery? How much is an open heart surgery? How much is a rotator cuff surgery? Whatever it is, and just comparing costs at different places, even things like X-rays and MRIs, and just extraordinary difference in prices. So one of the things that more transparency in cost does is it allows us to act as consumers. Do I want to pay, pick a number, $80 for an X-ray, or do I want to pay $200 for an X-ray? And just allowing us to practice kind of consumerism. So, Ellis, I went off on a bit of a kick there, but bottom line is that we've got to do more, I think, in our healthcare reform to help bring costs down. In Louisiana, we've seen a 123% increase in health insurance premiums. We've seen a significant increase in our deductibles as well, so we're paying a lot more, and we have a higher deductible, so we're getting less, and it simply is the wrong trend. So those are some of the changes that we're working on as healthcare reform moves forward. Let's see. Lisa. The governor can't get people to sign up, I hear. Don't believe it. We're signed up, but nothing is being done. I'm still in my house paying rent, $700 a month, and a $1,000 house note each month. Lisa, I'm assuming that you're referring to the Restore Task Force program, the Restore Louisiana program. So that is a program where we have provided approximately $1.7 billion in all federal funds to the state of Louisiana. That's additional recovery dollars. The Recovery Task Force has set up a tiered system whereby they have a number of different kind of tranches of or categories of people that they have identified for assistance. Some of them, as I understand, are receiving checks now from those federal funds that we gave to the state, and other ones are scheduled to be several months later. Without getting into all the details of this, we've been pretty frustrated by the timing of these dollars getting out, and have shared some ideas on how to expedite this. And in fact, I met with Secretary Ben Carson maybe 2 weeks ago approximately to talk to him about some of these things. So we're trying to get additional dollars, and we're working to try and expedite those checks being handed out to people. I'm very sorry about your situation, Lisa. If you think that we can help in dealing with the Restore Act, the Restore Task Force, we'd be happy to do that. We've done that on behalf of a number of other folks in South Louisiana. So Lisa, feel free, or anyone else, feel free to give us a call if you're having trouble getting feedback, getting payments or eligibility or what have you, and we're happy to help. So it's 225-442-1731. That's our Baton Rouge office, and we'll start there and see if we can help out, Lisa. April, I just figured they're going to do what they're going to do. They are, I guess, but I'm not sure what you're talking about. So maybe I'll see another comment down here, April, and see what that's responding to. Let's see, Larry. I talked to your office about GSA selling trailers on auction at $10,000 to $13,000. This costs taxpayers as much as $150,000. What's your position on getting FEMA out of the housing and just include additional living expenses to the policies? Too much waste there. So Larry, actually, I've talked about this a good bit dating back to maybe September, where there are instances where FEMA has paid $150,000, or in some cases, when you add up transportation costs, storage costs, setup costs, and other associated expenses, it's even gone beyond that. Completely absurd. As we talked to trailer dealers in the region, they had units anywhere from $28,000 to about $37,000, comparable units as I recall. And this was to buy them, not to temporarily use them, to flat out buy them. And so to see FEMA paying the cost that they are to purchase these units, transport them, store them, all this stuff, and then to turn around and sell them. Keep in mind, this is our money. This is our money as taxpayers. And I hear all the time, you hear all the time, we always think we need to run government like a business. Which business would ever do this? This is crazy. It is such a waste of money, and it's so frustrating whenever they could be giving you. I mean, heck, I'm sure you take $50,000 versus $150,000 or more that they're spending on these things, but just giving you more flexibility, giving you the resources to buy a trailer from a local trailer dealership, giving you resources to provide your own housing, or like the concept of shelter at home that I think had some major flaws, but the concept I like a lot. Instead of spending all this money on a trailer, instead of spending $150,000 on a trailer, give you, again, $50,000, whatever the number is, to actually help build back your home. Now, don't send some contractor in that puts up a plastic sink and nails a sheetrock or plyboard to a wall, but gives you the money and lets you go buy the stuff at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever to homes or wherever to go get the materials by it yourself, to hire your own contractor, whatever you want to do. I think that the approach that was taken is flawed. We've had a number of meetings with FEMA about this. We've had congressional hearings on this. And Larry, I couldn't agree with you more that this is another fleecing of taxpayers. Matthew, your support of the Senate healthcare bill. Are you concerned about the cuts to Medicaid and the creation of high-risk pools? Insurance companies have come out saying this will result in very high rates and deductibles. In those high-risk pools, the bill seems like a tax cut for the very wealthy directly at the expense of the working class. Finally, how many uninsured do you consider to be acceptable? 20 million, 30 million. Yeah, Matthew, thank you. So number one, the Senate bill, they actually released a new bill today, and I have not had a chance to go through that bill. Number two, I talked in response to Ellis's comment earlier about healthcare. I mentioned the fact that we've seen 123% increases in insurance premiums under the Affordable Care Act. I think it is outrageous what's happening with healthcare costs. I think that the Affordable Care Act had a fundamental flaw in that it brought government way too much in the relationship between you and your doctor, meaning creating a wedge in the relationship between you and your doctor. I think it has a flawed premise. One of the top things I hear at home are people's opposition to Affordable Care Act, people wanting it repealed. I've seen polls showing anywhere from 75 to 80% of folks in South Louisiana wanting Affordable Care Act repealed, replaced, repaired, just getting rid of it. So obviously we're being representatives of South Louisiana, and me having personal policy problems with the premise of the Affordable Care Act. I'm going to continue working to bring common sense reform to healthcare, getting government out of, eliminating the wedge that government creates under the Affordable Care Act between patients and doctors, physicians. One of the other things about 20 to 30 million, Matthew, that's actually, and I won't get into all the details, but it's somewhat of a distorted figure, because right now, under the Affordable Care Act, under Obamacare, individuals are mandated to have insurance coverage. What all of these healthcare bills do, the House bill, Senate bill, they eliminate that mandate. And so if you're being told right now that you have to do something, then in the law, then most people are gonna do that. Well, if you remove the mandate, then of course you're going to have people that no longer are buying insurance. And just to give you an example, Matthew, of some of the statistics for Obamacare, you have more people that have either sought a waiver or decided to pay the penalty, saying, look, I'm just not going to get it, I'm going to pay the penalty for not complying. You've had more people in those two categories that have sought a waiver from Obamacare or have paid the financial penalty for not getting coverage under Obamacare, then you've had people that have actually gained coverage. So this whole 20 million figure, 30 million figure, very distorted figures. One other point is that those figures by Congressional Budget Office estimate do not take into account some of the reform provisions that are being done through the Department of Health and also that are going to be done in what they're describing as this third kind of leg of the stool, which would be a healthcare reform bill, because the legislation that's being used right now is a reconciliation bill. I know I'm jumping into the weeds of Congress, but basically you can't use that kind of bill to do a lot of the policy changes that we want done. So bottom line is, I'm going to continue working to bring common sense to healthcare to help reduce costs and to give us more kind of freedom, our own freedom and decisions on healthcare. So let's see, Beth Myers, and I'm going up now. So I went down to the bottom, and the last one I have is well, now it's Lisa. But so let's see. So I'm going to go up now. Nikki, I already spoke to you. Beth. Sister-in-law, Beth Myers. My sister-in-law lost everything in the flood. She could not keep up with her insurance premiums, and as a result was hit with the Obamacare penalty. Feds took the little bit of tax refund money she was going to get to replace some of her furniture. I thought people were not going to have to pay that penalty. So let's see. So Beth, number one, the latest word I got, and Kevin and Negan, amen here. Latest word I got is that they were not going to enforce the penalty. So that is a decision, I guess, that's been made under this administration. I think it's a temporary decision, but they weren't going to enforce the penalty. Number two, since she did flood and lost everything, I'd love to see where she is with the Restore Task Force eligibility, flood insurance program, or what other assistance she's got, and see if we can help her out there. But importantly, if your sister-in-law is being told that she's going to have to pay that penalty, then if you can reach out to our office, I'd love to see if we can work with the IRS on her behalf and see if we can figure out what's going on there, because they did indicate that they were not going to be enforcing the financial penalty. So 225, Beth is phone number for our Baton Rouge office, 225-442-1731. If you could give us a call at our Baton Rouge office, I'd love to find out what's going on with your sister-in-law and see what we can do to help out there. And I want to remind all of y'all, if you're having problems with federal agencies or just government bureaucracy and red tape, part of our job is helping to cut through that. Also, it's helpful to us to see, if people start calling and are all running into this problem with the IRS or running into a problem with EPA or what have you, it helps us identify areas where we need to go in and in many cases take more permanent action so we can work individually in each of y'all's problems, but it also makes us identify or realize areas where we may need to change the law or change some other policy to help government operate better or more efficiently. Let's see, Lauren, how do you compare costs on emergency care? I'm not sure I understand that question. How do you compare cost on emergency care? Maybe what you're, okay, I'm clicking here. Maybe what you're saying is when I made reference earlier to the Blue Cross article in The Advocate or the efforts by Lee Zurich and Times-Picayune and Fox 8 to compare costs in different places, maybe you're talking about that. And so you still, I think, Lauren, first of all, if I have an emergency situation, I'm going to the closest hospital, but and maybe that was your point, but even you have hospitals that may charge you have certain types of urgent care or emergency care procedures, and so even understanding what those costs are. So maybe if somebody's going to charge, making up numbers here, $300 to stitch you up, or somebody else is going to charge $500. Well, that may not be as much of an emergency, and you can go ahead and drive the extra 5 minutes from one hospital or 10 minutes from one hospital to another. I guess I'm kind of going on a limb because I wasn't sure if that's exactly what your question was, but if you can clarify. Love to see if I can answer your question a little bit better. Pam, this healthcare bill is bad. The only solution is single payer. That's Pam Trowbridge. Pam, I think we've maybe talked about this before with you on these virtual town hall meetings. I don't agree with the single payer system. And again, when we've done polls and seen surveys in South Louisiana, they haven't agreed either. Single payer system, it eliminates options, it eliminates flexibility, it eliminates free markets and really just decisions or flexibility for citizens. And I don't think that it's a solution. And even when you look at what's happened in some other places where they've tried this experiment, it has not worked out well. It has not benefited in terms of quality of care, and I think that's a flawed approach that actually moves more in the direction of Obamacare and actually doubles and triples down on that concept, which I think is, as I mentioned, I think it's fatally flawed, as we've seen with the cost increases, with the insurance companies withdrawing, and other problems, the lack of options that citizens have. Norma, if Medicaid expansion is cut, how are rural hospitals going to survive? Well, first of all, they were surviving before Medicaid expansion. Secondly, I think you know, particularly under the House bill, that it actually doesn't contract expansion. What it does is it basically says if you're in the expansion, then you're in. And moving longer term, it does to attempt to provide more flexibility to states to help to better serve their Medicaid communities. But, you know, look, there was an article, I think this one was in The Advocate, within the past few weeks, that talked about the percentage of people in Louisiana under Medicaid. I mean, for example, the article cited that one half of the budget of the state of Louisiana was in Medicaid. I mean, that's crazy. One half of our entire state budget is Medicaid. We have got to be doing more to help address the poverty issue and help bring these people into better employment options. It's a longer term, bigger picture solution to where people are helping to, are given more options in terms of a pathway to prosperity. I mean, let me say that again. And according to this article, and I didn't go back and source it, but according to this Advocate article, one half of the entire state of Louisiana budget is Medicaid. We can't just continue throwing money at this problem. That's not a solution. We've got to address the underlying problem of getting people into the workforce, getting people out of poverty, getting people to job training, education skills, connecting them with job opportunities. There are some better longer-term solutions, which, of course, those solutions that I talked about provide private sector insurance options to those folks, which studies show you get better healthcare outcomes, you get better quality of healthcare. Only 10% of healthcare providers today actually even accept Medicaid. So, hope that was helpful. Let's see, I just lost where I was. Was that Martha, I think? Where'd you go, Martha? Well, I lost you. Sorry. Well, let me go back and just start back at the bottom again. All right. Okay, Teresa Ann, able-bodied people should not receive Medicaid. Teresa, look, I think that there needs to be a safety net in place. People fall apart hard times, and I think there does need to be a safety net in place for when people have fallen upon hard times in their life. But what I'm concerned about, and talking a few minutes ago about the one half of the state's budget being Medicaid, we've got to connect people with employment opportunities. There's job assistance centers, there's job training opportunities. A lot of this stuff is federally funded. The money's already there, the programs already exist, and just connecting people with them to where able-bodied people don't have to rely upon Medicaid because we're providing them employment opportunities and growth opportunities to where they can get in private sector insurance. Kevin's actually noting they have these, in Louisiana, they have these things called dish payments as well, which if I remember right, I think Louisiana receives some of the highest dish payments in the nation. Getting a head shake over here. Getting some of the highest dish payments in the nation. So those are disproportionate share payments that the state receives. And so that does help some of the rural hospitals and others, help them to stay in the black. All right, G.A. Varnell, I'm not sure I understand this. I would like to see farmers employed to clean out drainage canals. They have the equipment, just need surveying company to point and click. GA, we were able to appropriate approximately $300 million to the state of Louisiana to carry out additional flood protection projects and efforts. One of the things we've suggested to the state is that they use these monies to help advance the goals of the COMEAT project. They also, the federal government approved what they refer to as public assistance grants. So if some of the drainage canals are full or have debris as a result of the flood, they can get federal funds to clean those canals out. So you can clean them out to restore them to how they were before the storm. Using that $300 million, you can actually clean them out even more and make them operate better, have more capacity to prevent flooding. So those funds are there and really important. Stephanie Gunn Zumo, any update on the COMEAT diversion project? Oh, you just moved. Dang it. All right, hang on. Well, so Stephanie, Stephanie, I'm sorry, but you were asking about COMEAT, so let me just quick update there. The update on COMEAT is that to date, we've been able to provide approximately $2 billion to the state of Louisiana. Those are funds that can be used to help individual flood victims, for homes, businesses, other uncovered or unmet needs or expenses. Those funds can be used to build flood protection projects like the COMEAT project. We've provided part of that is $1.7 billion in community development block grant for some of the topics that I discussed, and then $300 million under the hazard mitigation grant program. And so we have advocated to the state in appropriating these dollars and suggested that they need to use these monies to build the COMEAT project. I just had a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with State Representative Valerie Hodges from Central. I think you said you were from Central. And some of the top folks from the Corps of Engineers, talking to them about the COMEAT project. We met again yesterday. I did with folks from the Corps of Engineers, following up on that meeting. And we've been able so far to get about $20 million just since I've been here for the COMEAT project. So we're trying to get the state to use part of that $2 billion to further advance, or effectively they can finish the project. So I've exchanged correspondence with the governor. There's a Restore Task Force meeting tomorrow, and I'm hopeful that they're going to dedicate some of those dollars to COMEAT projects. So Denise, where do you stand on net neutrality? Denise, we're still plowing through that one a bit. Net neutrality is the concept that the internet should, I guess, be free, that the internet should not prioritize certain traffic over others, meaning throttle back certain traffic, expedite certain traffic on the interstate. If you thought of the internet like an interstate, perhaps, that all cars should be able to drive the same speed, that's kind of net neutrality, and that is largely what was done under the FCC under the previous administration. There are efforts now to allow some type of kind of fast laning or express laning and throttling back. And what some folks argue is that you've had a transition, or you're seeing a trend right now in internet usage, and that many people are cutting the cord. They're getting their phone over the internet. They're cutting the cord. They're getting their TV over the internet. I know we have Netflix, for example, that our kids love to watch. And so a lot of people use YouTube and all of those things, whether it's a phone or Hulu or Netflix or YouTube. It takes a lot of bandwidth. There's a lot of data that travels as a result of those services. So those things may have previously been coming across airwaves or coming across your copper coax cable coming in through TV signals, and now it's all moving to your internet service provider. And so there's talk about trying to throttle back some of those high bandwidth or some of those high volume uses, like again the Netflix, Hulu, what have you, and no longer allow for everyone effectively to drive the same speed, and maybe to charge more based upon bandwidth. And so Denise, it's a hot topic. It's something I've been spending a lot of time on. I've met with some of the internet service providers. I've met with some of the people that are opposed to this. We're trying to figure out what the best solution is for folks in South Louisiana, and I'd love to hear, Denise, some of your thoughts on what you think is right. One thing is that the internet has certainly thrived under the freedom, but moving forward, as we're seeing these trends change and some of these, kind of refer to them as data hogs, some of these entities that take a huge amount of bandwidth, trying to figure out what the right thing to do is for the future to make sure that the internet continues growing and thriving. All right, Paxton McDuffie, what the move is for tonight? The move? I don't know, man. You got me. Michelle, good evening from Central. Michelle, thanks for being on. All right. What's with you? How you living, bro? Paxton. Living well. I'm a little hungry right now. I hadn't had dinner, but otherwise things going pretty good. Had a good day. Thanks for asking. Don plays on high taxes and high premiums under Obamacare help. Yeah, Don. I mean, that's the summary that we've seen from most people that I've spoken with in South Louisiana. This is a top 3 complaint that I've heard from people, is that in terms of top 3 issue I hear from people all the time, that they're paying higher premiums, they're getting worse insurance coverage or care. And so major concerns or problems with Obamacare, and that's where we're working to try and change it. But as I talked about, I think the last time we did one of these, bottom line is that it doesn't matter if you love Obamacare or you hate Obamacare, it is no longer financially solvent. And so there has to be change. People should be working together on this. Unfortunately, it has devolved into a ridiculous partisan fight. And we're just continuing to work to try and come up with solutions that make sense. But Don, certainly hear that concern a good bit from folks. So thanks. I'm going to roll back to the top. I feel like every time we do this, we end up having problems with the thing moving too fast, and I can't keep up. But Jonathan, hello, Congressman Graves. Jonathan, it's good to see you again. I certainly recognize your name from being on in some of our previous town halls. Cedric, as a veteran, the letter from Governor Edwards with a medal said that my contribution should be respected as a father. Why aren't my kids' right to both parents automatically protected? I get government assistance for everything. But seeing my kids, whom the judge stated there was no violence present, why are my kids' rights violated? Asked the judge. Let's see. It looks like you have a custody issue with your kids, and certainly want to see what we can do to help out and figure out what's going on there. If you can give our office a call, it's 225-442. 1731. Happy to look into it and see if we can figure out what's going on with that relationship. Lee Finette Huckabee, to be clear, the new version of Trump Care deems maternity care, mental health treatment, and prescription drugs as essential for members of Congress, but not the rest of Americans. This exemption could mean that members of Congress have coverage for a wider array of benefits than other Americans who pursue their own coverage. Lee, I'm not sure if you're talking about the House bill, the old Senate bill, the new Senate bill. Let me just say this. We actually co-sponsored, we co-authored a bill that would give complete parity between what members of Congress have in regard to insurance options and what the public would have, to where there's no disparity, number one. Number two, the insurance coverage that I have right now is Obamacare exchange insurance coverage. I don't have anything different than is available to anyone else off the healthcare exchange. It is the same insurance options and coverage options that anyone else has. I pay more for premiums, and I have a higher deductible than I've ever had, and the coverage is awful. I hope that I can empathize with you and what your experience. Well, I hope that none of us have to deal with this. But bottom line is that right now I have the same coverage as available to anyone. And number two, according to the bill that we co-sponsored and moved through the House, there would be no disparity between what members of Congress are offered for health insurance. And so basically the situation I just described of what we have right now being the same options that anybody in the public has, that would continue. So I hope that was responsive. I don't think members of Congress should have a special carve out. I think we should basically experience life like others. And so we're going to keep pushing to make sure that bill is part of any final package, or if we do 2 or 3 bills and wrap them all together, that it's part of that overall package at the end of the day. Let's see. Decide if I would go up or down. So we'll go down. Allison Raquel Kessner. Hey Garret, drainage in Central. Please cut red tape with Army Corps of Engineers to approve permits for Central. Allison, I gave an update on the Comey project earlier. So there are 2 different things going on. One is, and I've been talking to Mayor Shelton over in Central, and I know that Paul Sawyer, our chief of staff, has met with him a number of times recently as well. So 2 different things going on. One, I mentioned this earlier, FEMA has approved what they refer to as public assistance that would allow cleaning out of drainage canals that restores them back to pre-storm conditions. So if there's debris, if there's sediment, if there's vegetation, trees, whatever that's in there, if they're washers and dryers that resulted from the storm, all that can be cleaned out. And under the way that the Restore Task Force has put things together, it would be 100% federal cost. So all those costs would be covered by the federal government. 90% through one program, 10% through another program. Number 2, $300 million in hazard mitigation grant funds have been provided to the state, in all federal funds that we provided to the state. Those funds can be used to not bring it back to pre-storm conditions, but actually clean it out, make it better, improve it, so they can clean out drainage canals and bayous and rivers with those funds. We've advocated that they do just that in the flood area. In addition, that they advance the goals of the COMEET project. Lastly, the COMEET project, part of this $1.7 billion in funds, which is another pot of 100% federal funds. We've got those funds can be used to build the COMEET project. And then in addition to that, so I guess there's actually 3 things. We've received $20 million so far we've been able to get through the Corps of Engineers for the COMEET project. So bottom line is the state has $2 billion available to them today. Those funds can be used to complete, not to advance, to complete the COMEET project and those objectives. And we've advocated that they do that. If there's something else I'm missing that you're asking about, please let me know. But that has been a big priority. I've spoken to the governor about it several times, a number of FEMA officials, housing and urban development officials, and others to keep this thing going. So I hope that helps. William Burke, I cannot support anyone who supports companies to fast lane the internet. I hope you end up on the right side of things. So William, I think you're talking about that net neutrality and the question that, who was that? Was that a question that was asked earlier? I think it was Linda, if I remember right, had asked about the net neutrality issue. Let's see, Henry. Where'd you go? Okay, a vial of insulin costs $225 at CVS. Walgreens in Canada costs $50. Another vial costs $350 at CVS and costs $60. Why can't we simply do something to reduce drug costs in America? It's the same insulin. Can it be done outside of Obamacare legislation? So, number one, Henry, I 100% agree with you. I actually talked to somebody, I think it was last week, who told me that an inhaler that they use costs them $90 under their insurance in the United States. They can buy the same medicine in Mexico for $5. Same exact medicine. I think that perhaps using countries like Canada and some European countries that have a comparable FDA approval process to make sure that the drugs we're getting are safe. I will support that all day long. I've advocated for that. I've talked to the speaker about that. And I 100% agree with you. What we're doing right now, Henry, which is absurd, is that, and using your statistics, you're saying that one vial of insulin costs $225, the other one costs $350. You can buy the same things in Canada for $50 and $60. What that means is that increase in price, that disparity between $50 and $225, so that $175, that is basically us paying a global drug subsidy for every other country. We're paying for their drug cost. Here in the United States, I think it's absurd that we are subsidizing drug costs in other countries. And Henry, I'll say again, I would vote for that all day long. I've advocated for that. We try to find ways to get that into the House healthcare bill, because what it does is it helps to bring down overall healthcare costs. So people who say, oh, I want pre-existing conditions covered, I want this covered, I want money for this. If you can help bring down drug costs or bring down overall healthcare costs, it gives you additional flexibility on lowering premiums, on covering pre-existing conditions, and addressing some of these other things that people have identified as priorities. So I hope that was helpful, Henry. Sean Hallett, you're doing a great job. Governor Graves, yeah. By the way, have you seen Livingston Parish President Leighton Ricks? I haven't seen him since before the storm. Is he okay? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Sean, I invited President Ricks to come up as our guest for the White House picnic. What was that, about 2.5 weeks ago? So he was up here with his wife, and we took him over to the White House, went to the picnic, saw the president, talked to Vice President Pence for a while, introduced him to a bunch of other folks, and so yeah, he was just up here. I texted with him. Paul Sawyer, our Chief of Staff, just saw him, and Mark Harrell, the OEP Director, just yesterday. So yes, bottom line is he's doing okay. I know that his house did flood, and he was struggling with some of the flood recovery issues for his house and his family, while at the same time for the parish. But yeah, we talk a good bit, and I think he's doing well. Kathy Kennedy, bro, as a senior and diabetic, I'm still working to pay for medications. Why? Well, Kathy, I think that goes back to my earlier comments about bringing prescription drug costs down, and Henry's example of the disparity in prices between the United States and other countries. You can't defend that. You can't, and it needs to change. And so we're continuing to work on changes to the healthcare bill, including what may be a second bill that would come in behind the ones that we're working on right now to help make some of these other changes that I think make a lot of sense and would help bring healthcare costs down, premiums down, drug costs down. So we're going to continue working on that, Kathy. Jamie Chasson, keep net neutrality. And Jamie, like I said, I'm continuing to study this issue. I want to make sure I understand it. Certainly when you look at the history of the internet, the success, the growth, the thriving of the internet and online businesses has been impressive. What's most important to me is that trajectory continue. I just want to make sure that I understand the technical aspects of this, and that's why I've been talking to people on various sides of this issue to make sure that we make the right decision for the future to continue this growth and prosperity of the internet. Barbara, the help we did not receive for help is disgusting. Rent has gone sky high, and making more money from the spike in rent. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was supposed to say this earlier. Kevin slipped me a note, sorry about that. So I want to ask you all, please share this. I think it's right below. This. You can hit the share button. Helps us connect with more people in South Louisiana that we're supposed to be representing. There are about 750,000 people that live in the district we represent. So I just want to ask y'all if you can hit the share button. It helps out to connect us with other people we're supposed to be representing, giving us some marching orders and feedback from folks. So I'd appreciate it if y'all would share it. Thanks for the subtle reminder, Kevin. Let's see, where is it? Barbara. So next is Denise Snyder. Engineering companies in Louisiana are sending their work to India. They're keeping skeletal crews just to make changes. Engineering jobs are scarce, mostly out of state. Insurance companies are like criminals ribbing people of coverage due to pre-existing conditions. COBRA's too expensive. When you lose your job and can't get coverage, what are we supposed to do? So Denise, this goes back to some of the discussion we had earlier with other folks about just these absurd costs of healthcare. What we've seen under Obamacare in Louisiana is a 123% increase in insurance premiums, and that's why we're working on these healthcare reform bills to help to bring insurance costs down. The House has passed a bill already. The Senate's working on a bill. We're working to continue improving the bills through this process in both the House and the Senate to ultimately bring down costs that are out of hand. Hey, KK, I see you're on. JT Fletcher, how about the I-10 expansion from East Baton Rouge to Ascension Parish? It seems like there are too many surveys being down and no work on expanding. As you know, JT, we had this question come up because, as you know, there's been an announcement that I-10 is going to be 3-laned from Highland Road to Highway 73, Prairieville. And we went back and talked to DOTD to make sure we had the schedule down pat. If I remember right, and I'll tell you what, Paul, I think you're watching. I think that they said construction is going to start early next year on this, but JT, either Paul will respond or we'll put something in here responding if my answer is incorrect. We'll respond specifically to your comment, but if I remember right, because we went back and looked at this last time to make sure I had it right, and I think they said early next year. So we'll update you on right here under your comment if I got that wrong and just give you the accurate information. Look at that, Lily's on too. Hey guys, Michelle, when you come to the Central Chamber of Commerce Members Lunch, I'd like to chat with you in reference to your food stamp program. I run the City of Central Food Bank. Yeah, Michelle, happy to do that. And what you're referring to is legislation that we introduced a few weeks ago. It's reform of the SNAP program. It's based upon successes in the state of Alabama, similar to what Maine has done and other states where what they've done, and I actually made reference to these earlier. There are programs right now that are federally funded where you can get job search assistance, to where you can get job training assistance. So people that have lost their jobs and are on hard times and are getting SNAP assistance, federal food assistance. If I remember these numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, there were about 17 million people that were getting SNAP assistance, and the numbers ballooned to like 45 million. And so, I mean, that's just in that period of time, gone from 17 million to 45 million. So this extraordinary spike in people that are dependent upon these food programs, these food assistance programs. And so what our bill's done is it said, look, if you fallen upon hard times, lost your job, what have you, that you get food assistance. But there is a timeline. And after a certain period of time, if you are able-bodied and no dependents, that you then are required to go to these job assistance centers to make sure that you're connecting with the right resources to get you back into the workforce. And I'll tell you, I think as a taxpayer, somebody's helping to fund these programs that are ballooning, the trajectory of them going from 17 million to 45 million people, they're unsustainable. We cannot afford to continue paying for these. So I like the idea of connecting people who need jobs, who have lost their jobs or are looking for employment, connecting them with the resources to get back into the workforce. The other thing that it does, it connects them with opportunities to get the right job training for job skills for jobs that are actually out there that they may not have the job skills for. So our bill would require them to take advantage of those existing programs, existing resources to get them back into the workforce. And I think that as a taxpayer, if you're getting free food from taxpayers, from the government, that you have an obligation to make sure, to those people who are paying for that, to take these steps to get into the workforce. In the state of Alabama, when they did this on their own, put this requirement in place, they saw an 83% reduction in their food stamp rolls for these folks. So obviously we would like to build upon those successes. They saw a corresponding improvement of people getting back into the workforce, getting on their own 2 feet, which I think is good for taxpayers, and it's obviously great for those people that have fallen upon hard times, getting them back into the workforce. So hope that was responsive. All right, I'm going up now because I hit the bottom. Let's see. Jonathan, Jamie, work across the aisle. Jamie Chasson. I'll tell you that I do try. I do, and the majority of bills we've filed, we've done with bipartisan co-sponsors. The far majority of bills we've filed. I am going to do everything I can to make the right policy decisions for South Louisiana. I don't represent a party. I represent people. I represent y'all. That's one of the reasons we do these things so frequently, so y'all can hold me accountable. Y'all can share thoughts, ideas, frustrations. If I need a course correction on something, if I need to explain a vote we did, that's why we do these things. And so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to continue voting in a way that is best for South Louisiana. And having these accountability venues where I've got to defend votes and explain things to you is one of the ways that that we're working for people, not working for parties. I hope that our actions have demonstrated that. We've done things that I think about it all the time. I think about whenever a vote comes up. I think about, can I explain it? Can I defend what we did? Can I justify what we did? Can I explain why? Based upon our meetings and conversations, we determined that it was best for South Louisiana. So I think about that a lot. Let's see, Jamie, Sean, I think the Russians are colluding with Leighton Ricks. You know what? You got to watch it. I think they are. I tell you what, Russia allegations are flowing everywhere. It's absolutely amazing. But obviously, I said that in jest. I am certain that Leighton Ricks cannot speak Russian, hadn't been to Russia, doesn't drink White Russians, so he's a good guy. Manessa Lindsay, can you please do whatever you can to get rid of Common Core? CNN Student News is teaching a tool in Common Core curriculum being used in high school civics class in Livingston Parish. Manessa, it's the first I'm hearing about this curriculum being used. I talked to Rick Wenzel, the superintendent of schools in Livingston, a good bit. This hadn't come up, but I'll just say that there was a big education reform bill that came through Congress about a year and a half ago, if I remember correctly. And we have been working with them. This bill was hundreds of pages, it had a lot of reform, a lot of good things in it, and it helped to provide more flexibility to schools, to school districts, and I supported that. But it had one provision in it that gave me strong pause, and what it said is basically that in order for these schools to be eligible for the federal funding, for federal assistance, they had to submit an education plan to the United States Secretary of Education that had to be approved by the Secretary before those schools were eligible for federal funds. And so I just had a fundamental problem with these schools having to submit an education plan in Washington, D.C. to the Secretary of Education to be approved before these people were eligible for funding. I think that's why you have parent-teacher organizations, that's why you have teachers, that's why you have elected school districts and school boards. That is our way of making sure that we, localize our education, our curriculum, our schools, and putting it in the hands of parents and teachers. We have 3 kids, and I don't think that folks here in Washington need to be telling our teachers, our principals, our parents what they need to be doing and teaching. I want to make sure that our schools are learning from one another, that they're learning best practices, that our kids are getting the best education, the best opportunities that they can. But I'm not sure that this place is the best place to be telling us what we're going to be doing or what we should be teaching our kids. So, Manessa, I'd love to learn a little bit more about what's going on there. Like I said, this is the first I'm hearing of it. Jonathan, July 24th is the last day for debris pickup in Livingston Parish. Please have your debris out to the road. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. That's important. The people are still gunning homes and cleaning up their homes, and so Jonathan's saying that July 24th is the last day for debris pickup. So I'd urge you all to get debris out to the street as quickly as you can to make sure that you don't miss that deadline. Barbara, what's being done in the case of special needs families with medical insurance a sky-high rent. The apartment I'm in right now, for what I'm paying, is not worth. I have brown water daily. Okay, so a few things there, Barbara. One, I think you commented earlier. I'm not sure if you're a flood victim. If you're a flood victim, I want to make sure that we're plugging you into some of the resources that are available for flood victims. Number two, there are different programs that are available for drug coverage assistance and healthcare assistance and other things. So if there are issues there, I'd love to see if we can help plug you in with some of those resources. Brown water in an apartment, as I recall, that's actually illegal. There is a requirement that the landlords provide safe, potable water and reasonable living conditions. And so, again, the resources we can plug you in with to make sure that that you're getting the fundamental needs that you may have. So, let's see. Okay, Lee Finette, a study released Tuesday by two bipartisan groups estimated the country's poorest families would lose more than $2,500 in average annual health care benefits once the dang it, I hit the wrong button. Once the GOP legislation was fully phased in. Families making more than $1 million a year would get tax cuts averaging about $50,000, according to the analysis by the Health Policy Center and the Tax Policy Center. Still at issue is a plan by conservatives led by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas to let insurers sell low-price policies with bare bones coverage if the company also sells a policy covering enlisted services like maternity care. Okay, so let's see. Let me see how to respond here. Okay, so number one, I think it's important to take a look back. You're talking about people getting cuts and benefits and all those things. Obamacare was the largest tax increase in U.S. history. The largest tax increase in U.S. history. So by repealing it, you would be repealing taxes and fees that were imposed on many folks. And so there would be a reduction for those folks that experienced the highest tax increase in U.S. history. So perhaps that's what the study's based on. I haven't read the study, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that exactly means. Now, you say that people would lose $2,500 in average healthcare benefits. I'm not concerned about dollar value benefits. What I'm concerned about is healthcare outcomes. And that's why, Lee, I've said several times on here today that we've got to help bring healthcare costs down. We've got to help improve quality and access to care. And there's some things we can do to help bring costs down while at the same time improving quality. And so I don't think that strict dollars is necessarily the metric or the only metric we need to be using to look at healthcare outcomes. I mentioned earlier that some people are talking about, we need to continue expanding Medicaid. Well, Medicaid has some of the worst healthcare outcomes of any healthcare coverage. So if you care about people, is that really the program you want them in? Is that the expanded coverage we need to be doing? Or should we be building upon other options that have better healthcare outcomes, access to higher quality care? So I hope that was responsive. I said I hadn't seen this study yet, so I'm happy to take a look at that and see if I can find it. Roland, what parish do you rep? Well, there are actually 13 of them. We represent from the north side. It's East Feliciana and St. Helena. Coming down Point Capee, East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, Iberville, Ascension, Livingston, Assumption, St. John, St. Charles, Lafourche, and Terrebonne. So I think that was 13. But we basically represent from north of Baton Rouge, which includes Point Capee, East Feliciana, and St. Helena. We come down the river, which includes all Livingston Parish and Lake Maurepas, and touches into Lake Pontchartrain and St. John. We then go over and pick up a corner of New Orleans Airport, and then largely head over to the southwest and pick up Lafourche and Terrebonne, including down to the Terrebonne coast just across from Amelia. So hope that was helpful. Let's see. Polly, please update us on Go Mesa funding and where we stand. The president cannot rob those funds from our coast. Please don't let him. Polly, couldn't agree with you more. Did we ever post that video, Kevin, we did on this?
We didn't, but we will.
Okay, so we have a video that we cut on this that helped to explain all the background. A little bit of a background right now. So you're talking about GOMESA funds. That's Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. It's a law that was passed in December of 2006. While I was not in Congress then, I did help to write that bill. I helped to negotiate that bill back in 2006, and got a ton of blood, sweat, and tears in that thing. But what it would do is it would begin sharing offshore energy revenues. So energy revenues, for example, from activities like oil production, gas production, natural gas production. The intent of Congress, I believe, was also alternative energy revenue sharing, but it would share those revenues with the coastal parishes in the coastal zone. There are approximately 20 of them, and the state of Louisiana. So it would share 37.5% of those revenues from any leases in energy production following the 2006 bill enactment. And so the big dollars actually start flowing this year. 2 years ago, President Obama proposed that this program be eliminated. And by the way, Polly, as I'm sure you know this, under the program, or under the state's constitution, Louisiana's constitution, these dollars are dedicated to coastal restoration, hurricane protection, flood control type projects to help improve the resiliency of our communities to where we don't flood all the time. So Obama tried to cut this in 2015. We fought it and prevented that from happening. He tried to cut it again in 2016. We fought it and were able to prevent that from happening. So now it was included in the Trump budget in 2017. So we had a hearing on this about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke. I met with him earlier in that week and talked to him about it. I talked to Vice President Pence about this as well. Talking about what I viewed as being the policy flaws in trying to withdraw this money. I told him that I thought it was contrary or counter to their talk about energy independence. If you want energy independence, you've got to share these revenues to help us restore our coast and protect our coastal communities. Steve Scalise, prior to his awful tragedy, he had conversations with Mick Mulvaney, who is the Office of Management and Budget Director, so effectively the government's budget director. Spoke with him about this. We had another hearing on it this week. We had one week before last, so we've had a lot of, where I participated, we've had a lot of pushback on this. While I'm not popping any champagne corks right now, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be successful in fighting this off again. Like I said, I personally got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that law, and have a personal passion, like I'm sure most of you, in our coast and our coastal communities, and think that this revenue stream is really important. In fact, I met with the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority Chairman Johnny Bradbury today, and we talked about this a little bit. They were up here, so we're going to keep pushing it. And Polly, very frustrating to see that in the budget. Let's see. All right, let's see where we're going. All these things have moved now. So I see Joanne Morrow, who was awesome, OEP director in Baton Rouge. I hope you're enjoying. Retirement. But Joanne, thanks very much for being on, and I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well, and hope you're enjoying retirement if you're who I think you are. All right, so give me a sec here, trying to reload comments. All right, almost there. Okay. All right, so next one, Jeffrey Osborne. Where'd you go, Jeffrey? Okay. Come on, fellas, you know you're in a business and make a profit, pay your taxes. The more you make, the more taxes you pay. Stop listening to elected official about Obama, not no good, the best country ever had. the business people raising the price up on purpose. If he working for the people, Louisiana shouldn't have that problem. Don't fall the federal government, they not right. Graves rules come from Washington, D.C. Y'all's problems is local problems. When y'all in town business handle, y'all don't need Graves. They want y'all's money for wars. He don't know nothing about healthcare. Obama did for the people in the world. All he did is make sure people can go to the doctor to cure. He's lying on Obama. He took on things for Louisiana that would help. Well, Jeffrey, no. We have seen people lose health care coverage. We see people lose their doctors, lose their health plans, pay 123% increase in health care premiums, Medicaid expansion, worse health care outcomes. I can't disagree with you more, and I'll say it again. The far majority of people in South Louisiana, in our district, do not want Obamacare, that they want Obamacare repealed, replaced, fixed, repaired, eliminated, whatever. As a representative of people in South Louisiana, and as I said earlier, from a policy perspective, I fundamentally disagree. You cannot and should not inject government in the relationship between patients and doctors. I think that there are things we can be doing to help bring healthcare costs down, like drug costs, for example. But I think to wedge government in between our relationship with healthcare and doctors is fundamentally flawed. I think that giving us markets, opportunities, options, flexibility is the way to go. I can't say enough about my opposition to Obamacare. It is a flaw. It was an experiment. And to quote the Aetna CEO, it is on a downward death spiral. It didn't work. It was a flawed premise, and it's broken. And so I couldn't agree with you, disagree with you more on that. And that doesn't mean that we need to just repeal it and sit back. I think that we've got to make sure that we have a comprehensive replacement package that makes sure that pre-existing conditions are covered, make sure that people have healthcare options, that we repeal the taxes and fees. So I apologize that we're not of the same thinking here. Gayla McGinnis, what happened to people working getting insurance coverage through their employers? Gayla, let me plug you in with Jeffrey right above you, and y'all talk. And I agree with you, Gayla. That is I think the better solution, and certainly what we're going to continue working for. Polly, yes, Garret, I understand and agree on all aspects of securing Go Mesa funds. Thank you for supporting your coast. God bless Congressman Scalise and all our congressional delegation efforts. Yeah, Polly, thank you. And I want to urge all of y'all. Steve is good news. He's out of ICU. He's back in a regular room, I guess. As of yesterday, Steve still has a long road to recovery, and I just urge you to pray for him and Jennifer, his wife, and kids as they continue to go through these really challenging times. But thank you. Let's see. Lee, I see you commenting a whole bunch, but I've already answered a couple of your questions. Let me see if I can find somebody who hadn't comment yet. Let's see, Sean, I think I answered one or two of yours. Let's see, Jamie, Stephen, hey Steve, Kelly, hey Steve, good to see you. Hope you all are doing well. Let's see, Kashawn Rayleigh, why isn't Medicaid paying for medical equipment lost in the flood? I assume you're talking about at your house, maybe if somebody had a breathing machine or something. And Keshawn, there are different assistance programs. I'd love to see if we can figure out exactly what you're talking about versus, I guess the other thing you may be talking about is a business. But if you can give us a call, I'd love to see if we can figure out what's going on, specifically 225-442-1731 is our Baton Rouge office, and probably the best place to give us a call. We'll see what we can do to help out I'm going to skip over a couple of these folks. Jonathan, I see you coming again, and Allison, Manessa, Barbara, Jonathan. I got the frequent commenters. Okay, Brett, here we go. Brett Thompson, we voted for a president. Do you support his agenda? Brett, I don't rubber stamp anybody, and I don't think that y'all elected me or anyone else to just rubber stamp what somebody else says. If that's the case, you don't need me here. You don't need a representative. I have supported the president on the far majority of the initiatives that he has sent to Congress. But I'll tell you, there's some things that I haven't agreed with him on. And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, I'll give you an example we're just talking about. In the budget request, it proposes rescinding Go Mesa funds, the offshore energy revenue sharing funds we use for restoring our coast and protecting our citizens. I don't agree. I couldn't disagree more. And so I'm not going to rubber stamp that. There was an issue that came up on internet privacy. And basically there was a proposal that was being pushed by White House and others that would repeal an FCC rule that pertained to our internet privacy. It effectively prevented internet service providers from taking our confidential data, for example, what web pages you visit, what information you're looking for or surfing on the web, and taking that and potentially selling it to other folks. Look, I already pay an internet service provider. I already pay Verizon or AT&T. I pay Cox and Charter and folks for I guess at home we have Cox. I already pay those folks. I don't think they should be able to take my private data and turn around and sell it as well. I don't agree with that. Now, there were some problems with that rule in that it left open some other folks that collect your private information and sell it, which I think was a problem. But I opposed what the administration was pushing there. I voted against what they were trying to do. So there are going to be some instances where there may be South Louisiana specific things. There may be some other policy things. Going back to my comment earlier, I couldn't have voted for that and stood here and explained or justified to you why I thought it was okay to expose your private information to companies and allow them to take it and sell it to other people. I couldn't defend that. And so I think a lot about what it is that we're voting on. I think about this exact scenario where I've got to defend or explain or justify something we've done to you. And so I've supported, again, I'll say it, the far majority of the president's initiatives. I'm going to continue to look at them individually, but if you want me here just to rubber stamp every single thing they do, I'm a waste of money and time. I shouldn't be here. I'm going to do things that are best for South Louisiana, and I hope you can respect that because I think that's what my job is. As your representative, the president has to look at the whole nation, the whole world. My focus, my primary focus is South Louisiana. And look, I come home, I walk around the grocery store and walk around the neighborhood and our community and do meetings. And so I'm a member of that community as well, and I want to do what's best for our community. So again, Brett, I hope that was helpful. If there's a specific issue or agenda item that the president or White House is pushing that you're concerned about, I'd love to hear that one specifically, and happy to discuss it with you. Let's see. Polly, Linda, I don't think I've answered anything from you yet. Let's see. So Linda Bowman Wilson. Is Congress aware that placing caps on Medicaid will negatively affect individuals with disabilities? Many rely on support and services to continue to live in their communities. Moreover, individuals will actually die if they're not able to receive their care that's funded by Medicaid. Linda, one, people weren't dying before Obamacare, right? Two, I'll go back and say what I said before. If someone is covered under Medicaid, under the House passed bill, they're still covered under Medicaid. There's not a change in terms of somebody being kicked out. There is a ton of misinformation that's out there. I mean, some of the questions we've been asked, some of the phone calls we received, and things people have said, just completely untrue. And I'm sorry that there's so much misinformation out there. Unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people that intentionally are spreading misinformation on some of these bills. I'll go back and say it again. I don't think the House bill is perfect. We are continuing, and I was continuing to, about an hour before that vote on the bill, continuing to try and push to add some additional changes in there. One of the things that was done was adding additional funds for Medicaid toward the end of those negotiations, Medicaid high-risk pools and other things. So we're going to keep working through the process and keep working on some of the reforms and changes. But bottom line is, healthcare costs are too expensive. It's too bureaucratic and has way too much government involvement, and we're going to work to change that. James Strother, when are we going to fully repeal Obamacare, and will we see a bill for term limits? Let me take those separately. Obviously, James, number one, on Obamacare, the bill's passed the House. We're right now waiting on the Senate to act. As a matter of fact, I think we're waiting on the Senate to act on that and about 230 other bills that have passed the House that the Senate has not acted on yet. The Senate did say that they're going to stay in session for an additional 2 weeks perhaps. They were supposed to adjourn in the beginning of August and go home and do district or state meetings. But they said that they're going to stay around, I think, for another 2 weeks. I think that's great. They've got a lot of catching up to do. So as soon as the Senate acts on the bill, we'll then have a House bill, have a Senate bill, and we would go to House-Senate negotiations. And look, as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to vote on it tomorrow. On term limits, there are a number of bills that are out there, including constitutional amendments that's out there. I have not seen a schedule or a bill that looks like it's building up additional support to where you'd be able to choose one over the other in terms of the one that has the most support that would come up for a vote. But if something changes, certainly we'll let you know there. Something I've said on here before in regard to term limits. I support term limits, but I think they have to be paired with term limiting certain bureaucrats as well. One of the things you've heard people refer to as the deep state. It is amazing to me, and just in the short time I've been here, some of these people, some of these bureaucrats that have been at these agencies for decades and decades, and I've seen laws that have been passed and the law says you shall do X, and these people have sat down and said we're not going to do it. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? The law says you have to do it. And they just shrug and we're not going to do it. And so you cannot have bureaucrats that sit around with that kind of arrogance and just continue to stay in these jobs and in these roles and thwart the will of Congress, thwart the will of the public. And so I think that they need to be paired with term limits on certain bureaucrats to prevent those folks from hanging around and continuing to impose their will versus the public's will on us, and just ignoring laws that have been passed and things like that. So I know there are a lot of other questions. I'm happy to go in and answer some of those. I'll come in online later on and answer some of those after we finish up some other work. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I think Kevin said we've been on for how long? We've been on? Over an hour. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and I want to thank all of y'all for participating. I want to ask once again if you can please hit share. That way you can share this with other people, and we can get in contact with additional people in South Louisiana on these things. It's amazing to me to see the incredible participation that we get on these town hall meetings like these online town hall meetings. It's just awesome to see all the people that join in and participate. I'm trying to say I can see the latest number. We can get numbers and just showing how many people have already tapped in. But we'll have thousands of people that will view this video. So if y'all can hit share, we can connect with more people in South Louisiana. It helps us connect with folks at home, folks we're representing. And so just want to ask that you do that. Again, if y'all put some other comments in, I'll try and get to some of those tonight or over the next few days, try and get in and respond to things we didn't get to. I hope y'all have a great day, a good night, and God bless. So take care.